I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel strikes Gaza following a rocket attack. The Israeli army closes off parts of the Golan Heights to Israelis for security concerns, and we'll reveal why the Queen of Pop, Mariah Carey, is gracing Israel with her presence. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Israel has launched a series of airstrikes in the Gaza Strip after a rocket was fired into Israeli territory by an Islamist group in the coastal enclave. The Israeli Air Force struck at least 3 Hamas bases in the Gaza Strip on Monday night, targeting military sites in Gaza City and the city of Rafah near the Egyptian border. The strikes have not caused any casualties and appear to have caused no injuries. While the attack has been claimed by an Islamic State-linked group rather than Hamas, Israel says that Hamas is responsible for any attacks coming from its territory. While the Islamist terror group claims it's not interested in another round of violence, it remains deeply committed to the destruction of Israel. The organization advocates the liberation of all of Palestine, which they view as part of the Islamic Ummah. Currently, Hamas is experiencing challenges in ruling the Gaza Strip, especially since reduced electrical service is putting a serious strain on the population. Now, that's not all that's happening in Gaza. New reports are saying that there are secret talks between Israel and Hamas to release several Israeli nationals who have been kidnapped and held by Hamas, but doing so will probably come at a substantial cost. The new Hamas leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, reportedly met with top Egyptian officials as well as a Fatah member who was involved in the Gilad Shalit talks. Israel's Channel 1 News is reporting that Egypt is mediating secret talks, and in April, the previous leader of Hamas implied that a prisoner exchange was being discussed. Right now, Hamas is holding 2 or 3 mentally ill Israeli men, all of whom entered Gaza on their own, as well as the bodies of 2 soldiers killed in the 2014 Gaza war. In 2011, Israel traded around 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, many of them convicted murderers, to secure the release of the imprisoned Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit. Hamas is demanding the release of 3 prisoners who were released in that previous swap and have since been rearrested for their role in the murder of 3 Israeli teenagers in 2014. It's likely, however, that they will not be the only prisoners that Hamas is demanding will be released. It's been even more tense than usual on the Israel-Syria border lately. Several stray mortars from Syria have hit Israel for the last 3 days in a row, and the Israeli Air Force has responded by striking Syrian army installations. Now, the army has taken even further precaution by closing off parts of the Golan Heights to Israeli civilians. The army says that crowd-gathering points near the destroyed Syrian city of Quneitra will be closed off until further notice. Farmers with fields and orchards in the area will be able to tend to their crops, although they're forbidden from approaching the border fence. According to the IDF, stray fire from Syria hit a UN peacekeeping position in the Golan on Monday. Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman says that Israel has no intention of launching a military operation against the Syrian government or against rebel groups, but some speculate that the next conflict with Hezbollah in Lebanon is already on the horizon. A conflict in Lebanon could easily spill over to Syria, and Lieberman says that Israel will not tolerate any provocations from the neighboring country. Israel holds the Syrian government responsible for any errant fire that comes from across its borders. Now that the Israeli government has frozen plans to build a new egalitarian prayer plaza by the Robinson's Arch site at the Western Wall, lots of people are furious. From the Women of the Wall group to American Jewish denominations, the condemnations are rolling in. ILTV correspondent Max Keisler has more on the story. Now, Max, tell us more details.
All right, let's be honest. The fallout here was inevitable. I don't know how the Israeli government didn't see this coming when they canceled these plans. Now American Jewish groups are taking this as a betrayal, and the Israeli government's consolation prize seems to be doing a lot of nothing.
So what is the Israeli government doing?
Well, they're going to continue expanding the Robinson's Arch prayer site, but not to the scale that the liberal groups wanted, and certainly not with the new entrance they wanted. For Women of the Wall, this was never acceptable in the first place. They're saying this is not somewhere where they can physically touch the wall. And for Israeli archaeologists, any building at the Robinson's Arch site is a huge problem. They're saying this is a major archaeological site with a lot of Second Temple period artifacts, and any building there could cause immense damage.
Well, let's check out your report for some more details.
On Sunday, Israel froze its plans to build a large-scale pluralistic prayer site in the southern area of the Western Wall around Robinson's Arch, and major Jewish organizations across the world are taking this as a betrayal. The conservative movement in America and Masorti movement in Israel have put out a statement decrying the rising influence of an intolerant religious establishment that threatens the unity of the Jewish people. Rick Jacobs, the head of the Reform movement in America, says that now the compromise has been scrapped, new negotiations won't be credible, and he's canceled his scheduled meeting with Netanyahu for Thursday, while noting that Reform and conservative Jewish leaders were in Jerusalem on Sunday when the government reversed its decision and weren't even notified. Education Minister Naftali Bennett says he understands that the representatives of U.S. Jewry feel like they were slapped in the face by the Israeli government. Meanwhile, high-profile archaeologists like Eilat Mazar and Roni Reich are saying that further construction at Robinson's Arch will damage the most important archaeological site for the Jewish people.
In related news, the Israeli cabinet has also announced that starting effective immediately, the ultra-Orthodox Rabbinate of Israel will have full control over conversions to Judaism. We turn now to a clip from this week's edition of Israel Weekly with host Aaron Porras to hear some of the implications that this controversial decision may have.
There is no reason why people, let's say rabbis, could have a registry. A rabbi married my daughter, kedat v'kadin, kedat Moshe v'Yisrael, and it's not recognized, and there was nothing unhalachic about it. We should have a registry. Rabbis can sign up to be, rabbis of marriage. There's no reason why. It's all political.
So,
it's all political, and I would like to say that nobody can judge anybody else's kavanah in prayer. We started as a prayer group, and we ended up as a political group because of the disagreement on the Haredi side.
How would you respond?
I would respond that all their conversion is on our view is nothing.
Did you check how we do it? Excuse me. Did you check that?
I don't have to check
it. No,
it.
you do need to check it in order to judge it. Excuse me.
It's nothing. I will tell you.
You do need to judge it.
You don't convert. You don't go outside here and ask how we convert. What is the Jewish conversion? How it comes? It's a tradition. It's a tradition, generation after generation. We, the Orthodox, keep this tradition. They have nothing.
You don't know
no
that.
canon, no laws, nothing. They
are
nothing. The reforms they are Jewish, but they are non-Jewish.
I feel I have to pass the floor.
No, you obviously didn't do your homework on that one.
We're going to get to you in just a second.
I ran the conversion school at Bet Daniel congregation here in Tel Aviv. I've been dealing with converts and conversion for the last 20 years. And I think that the most important thing to say is that since 2002, Reform and conservative conversion are recognized by the State of Israel, and all our converts are registered as Jews in the Ministry of Interior.
I'm not someone who's coming in and saying we should just open up the doors. Anybody who does any kind of conversion, I do believe we have to sit together, all the streams, and find uniform policy about conversion. But we're missing the bigger story here. Living in Israel today are a few 100,000 immigrants from the former Soviet Union, whose only crime in this story is that they lived through 70 years of communism in their families, and they have a Jewish father or a Jewish grandfather. They don't have a Jewish mother. And therefore, according to halakha, even from my perspective, they're not Jewish. But they came here as Jews. They're fighting here as Jews. They're dying here as Jews. They want to be part of the Jewish people. And I can look at Rabbi Halberstadt in the eyes and tell him, without interrupting me, please, I'll show you a few hundred pages of sources that show that we can reach out to them and bring them into the Jewish faith, including response from Rav Ovadia Yosef. They could stand before the Beit Din and accept to be Jews. And the crime that we're committing on the religious side is that we are not allowing them to come in, and we are creating an intermarriage problem in the state of Israel because we've shut the doors to these people to become Jewish.
I totally agree.
Years from now, history will look back on the rabbinate and the rabbis, beards and all, religious and all, and they will have caused the greatest tragedy to the Jewish people because of intermarriage, because we're so religious that we're going to go with the most stringent opinions instead of, you know what a rabbi's supposed to do? Not create problems, find solutions. And the solutions are there, and we have to be doing so. The decision the government made closed the door to rabbis who want to find those solutions within halakha to bring a few 100,000 into the Jewish faith. That is the greatest travesty of this week, and the Jewish people will suffer for generations if we don't fix it, and we're going to fix it.
The fraudulent binary and forex industry in Israel was dealt yet another blow last night when the Knesset Assembly unanimously voted in favor of an outright ban. ILTV's Aaron Porras is here following up with this story. Now, Aaron, what does this mean for binary options and for Israel in general?
For binary options, it's bad news. You know, as you just said, 31 of the members of the Knesset who showed up last night all unanimously voted against it. The deputy finance minister said that it would be, a real great thing for social change and social justice and
Absolutely.
a great means for everybody. To answer your second question, as far as, how's it for Israel in general, honestly, I can't see how there's any downside to this because, as you know, months ago, we already banned working with forex and binary companies on Israelis within Israel. So these companies have been focusing abroad.
So how could we be focusing abroad?
Exactly.
Right.
So they've been focusing abroad. So now, really, all this law does is it's in the interest of the safety of others, having nothing to do with Israel. So if there's really no downside to this.
It should help Israeli public relations.
It should help the public
That's a hope here.
relations.
Well,
It
let's
really
check out your report.
Right.
Binary options companies essentially operate in the form of a rigged and unregulated internet gambling service. The enterprise employs thousands of Israelis, primarily immigrants, who go on to defraud people across the world out of millions of dollars. Whether by refusing to pay out, rigging the data, or pushing people into terrible investments, the people making phone calls from Tel Aviv high-rises are making good salaries preying off unsuspecting victims. All these practices are about to be a thing of the past, though, as the newly passed bill bans all binary options trading, period. It even heavily affects Forex and CFD companies operating in the Jewish state as well. Further still, the proposal would authorize the penalty of up to 2 years in prison to anyone found in violation of the ban. In May, the head of one multi-billion-dollar company was already arrested on counts of fraud, extortion, blackmail, misrepresentation, and false accounting. As one might imagine, then, the passage of this bill comes as a sigh of relief to many people in countries around the world. Over the past few months, many binary trading companies have already shut down or moved abroad in anticipation of this day.
The Knesset has just passed a bill that will allow new immigrants to receive passports as soon as they acquire citizenship. But the Israeli police are worried that this could be a gift to criminals. Until now, immigrants have had to face a 12-month waiting period before they could acquire Israeli passports. The new law, which passed unanimously yesterday, removes that requirement completely. Knesset member Oded Foel, who sponsored the bill, is claiming that automatically giving passports to new immigrants will help fight the notion that they're second-class citizens. But Israeli police are worried about an entirely different issue. They claim that there's a real concern that the law could end up benefiting criminals, and more specifically, citizens from the former Soviet Union who have ties to organized crime. Police are concerned that the automatic Israeli passports could be used to enter countries to carry out crimes from drug smuggling to sex trafficking. Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, the leader of the Israel Beitenu party, says a police statement is a racist hate crime against immigrants from the former Soviet Union. All right, Israel is a place where Jews all over the world can return to their ancestral homeland. It's also then a country of immigrants, and one immigration organization has taken it upon itself to honor the best and the brightest from the immigrant community. Returning to the studio now is ILTV's Aaron Porras with more on this incredible event. Aaron, take it away.
All right, so this is the 4th annual Sylvan Adams Nefesh B'Nefesh Bonei Tzion Awards.
That's a mouthful.
It is quite the mouthful, but it is an amazing, incredible award. It's gifted to English-speaking immigrants to Israel who have made a major impact in the country, and it's given in all sorts of different categories, from education, science, to social justice.
And there are just so many people to choose from. I mean, we should have submitted some of the people at ILTV.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron Porras, I'll remember. Next year, we're submitting Aaron Porras' name.
Next time we're submitting Aaron Porras'
But for now, let's check out who actually won the prizes.
The recipients this year include Professor Benjamin Korn for Science and Medicine, Beth Steinberg for Community and Nonprofit Work, Rabbi Chaim Brovender for Education, Professor Gerald Steinberg for Israel Advocacy, and Yoram Ra'anan for Culture, Art, and Sports. In addition, IDF Captain Libby Weiss and Scott Ness of the Israel Lacrosse Association were both awarded Young Leadership Awards, and Professors Eliezer Jaffe and Alice Shalvi each were awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award for social work and philanthropy and feminist activism and education, respectively.
Professor Shalvi, among other things, was the founding chairwoman of the Israel Women's Network, one of Israel's foremost and longest-running advocacy groups for women's issues, and she received the Israel Prize for Lifetime Achievements in 2007. The late Professor Jaffe stands recognized for his work in social improvement and development of the nonprofit sector. Among his many achievements, awards, and recognitions, perhaps none outshine his work as the founder and first president of the Israel Free Loan Association, which has provided nearly 60,000 interest-free loans to Israelis as of yet.
Very cool. The lucky and talented group of prize recipients will each receive $10,000 and, of course, major bragging rights for their incredible service. So let's all share a moment of congratulations. All right, now for the first time in history, a Spanish language song has become a #1 hit on Billboard. And now 2 Israelis have taken it upon themselves to remake the song in Hebrew. If you haven't heard the tune Despacito, you've probably been living under a rock.
ואני נמשך, אני מתקרב, אני רוצה כל כך, רק מלחשוב על זה עולה הדופק. איתך, כבר מזמן הבנתי שאני שלך, כל החושים שלי רק מבקשים אותך, אני ואת יושבים ביחד מול האופק. כשתהיי פה, אנשק לך את הצוואר כשאת איתי פה.
The hit single by Puerto Rican pop star Luis Fonsi has already been remixed with Justin Bieber, but forget Biebs because now Ram Bashti and Choval Moshon are taking over. The 2 Israelis have translated Despacito to Hebrew and uploaded their own cover version, and it's gotten over 10,000 views since it was uploaded. Surprisingly, most of the comments on their YouTube video are full of Spanish speakers enjoying the international spin on the sexy ballad. There's also a version of the original music video with Hebrew subtitles and a direct translation from Spanish to Hebrew on the Latino Hebreo YouTube channel. So if you're looking to practice your Hebrew, it might be time to check out their hit remix. All right, now when you think about opera, you probably think of Italian classics like The Barber of Seville or The Marriage of Figaro. But here in Israel, we have our own school of opera that's emerging on the world stage. Joining me today in the studio is Lola Israel, the director of the International Masterclasses and Zembuki Competition of Vocal Arts. Thank you so much for coming in. So normally we'd probably begin this interview with a little bit of song, but from what I understand, there's a very interesting project that your company does working with Holocaust survivors. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's a masterclass that takes place every year in the summer, and we bring together the best operatic talents of the world with the audience in Jerusalem, and of course aiming at the whole country. And we don't use the word Holocaust survivors lightly. We do that because our main benefactor, who's Mr. Yosef Jamboki, the masterclass is named after him, survived the Second World War, and his benefactor, Mr. Pavel Jamboki, took care of him as a child, and he vowed to use the name Jamboki to make good and create bridges of music, to bring together generations, to bring together people, to bring together disputing parties through music, and that's what we do.
It's amazing, and so you actually perform for these survivors, which is something that
for the whole audience, but the survivors do take part, a very active part, and they can participate in all our activities.
Do they ever sing?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Our students give them lessons, and we have activities together, and it's very heartwarming. It's
wow. I would love to see that myself. Now, you know, like we said before, opera isn't something that we necessarily associate with Israel. So my question is, how many productions is your company putting on a year?
This year we do 2 productions. One, which is my heart's desire, is every year to bring on local production by a local composer. Last year was Israel Sharon with Pyramus and Thisbe, and this year it's Albert by Moshe Zorman and Oded Lifshitz, which is a comic opera about a man who wants to get rid of his libido and wants to get rid of his sexual drive, and we follow him in the opera with the stages of achieving his goal. And I won't give give in if he does or he doesn't.
Well, so we're just going to have to watch to find out. But
yes,
it already
indeed.
does sound very engaging and probably very hilarious to watch. So how long have you personally been singing opera? Where are you from originally?
I was born in London.
Wow, okay.
And I came to Israel as a child. And I studied opera since the age of 17. And I started in Israel, and then I went to study in the Royal Opera, in the Royal College of Music in London and in Germany. And I met this wonderful professor, Claudia Eder, who is coming. She was my personal teacher. She taught me everything, and she's coming to teach the talents of Israel and the world in this masterclass, which is a great honor.
So, I mean, how did opera get to Israel in the first place? If you could try to answer that in a short sentence, because I know we're running out of time, but this is very interesting to me.
Well, opera is an amalgamation of all the emotions, and because we have so many talented people, opera, of course, will emerge here. And we actually take part in cultivating this wonderful art form. But of course the Israeli opera has done so much, and the academies in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem. Of course, Professor Tamara Chum, who's the head of music, the head of vocal music in the Buchman Meta Academy in Tel Aviv, she's one of our teachers as well, and she's responsible, you know, with her work in cultivating the young singers.
So when is the next performance?
Our next performance is the Operatic Gala, which takes place on the 30th of July.
Coming up.
And two productions, Donizetti Viva la Mama, which is a hilarious opera, which is a world Israel premiere, and that takes place on the 2nd of August.
Okay.
And Albert, the man without a libido, yes or no, takes place on the 4th of August and the 6th of August.
All right, well, we will definitely be keeping up and trying to get tickets ourselves here, so I hope our audience is able to come and watch as well.
I hope
Thank
so
you
too.
for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, an American diva has just become the face of an Israeli cosmetics company, and ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here with a scoop. Emmanuel.
Yes, hello. Okay, so she is here in Israel. She's going to become the face of a new Israeli makeup brand called Premier Cosmetics, which is just another reason I love her.
Absolutely. Now, this isn't her first time in Israel, right?
No.
This isn't her only connection
No,
to the
no, no.
country.
She actually has visited Israel 3 times in the past few years, and apparently the photo shoot for the cosmetics line is going to be taking place in the Dead Sea.
Which is amazing. All the minerals, all the good, you know, products for your skin come from the Dead Sea here in Israel. Well, I'm excited to check this out. But
Yes.
let's see the details in your report.
Yes.
Carey held a press conference in Tel Aviv yesterday in her capacity as brand ambassador for Premier Cosmetics. Reportedly, she received around $1.4 million to represent the company. The legendary singer will be in Israel for a week along with her 6-year-old twins Monroe and Moroccan. The last time she was in Israel, Carey had dinner with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife Sarah. At the time, she was dating the casino mogul James Packer, a major donor to Netanyahu, who is actually now a person of interest in the Prime Minister's Case 1000 graft investigation. Carey says she has no immediate plans to play a concert in Israel, but she hopes to return in the near future to perform or visit.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Working with deadlines can be very stressful, but sometimes you need to just take a breather and slow it down. So today's word is le'at, which means slow in Hebrew. When you live in a place like Tel Aviv, it can feel like life on a whole is on fast forward. So don't be surprised if you see people lose their cool on the street. If you've seen Israelis shouting angrily about the traffic situation, you could try to say le'at le'at, which basically translates to relax. But we'd also advise you to be careful when you choose to get into his or her face. A better option for you may be to just try and take your own day, le'at, or slowly. Appreciating the smell of the jasmine blossoms, breathing in the salty wind along the beach, savoring the taste of your hummus dish, these are all things you can do if you just learn to live on the le'at side. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast, which is perfect for the beach, so you can be le'at. Tonight should be partly cloudy with a low of 74 or 23 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect a slight drop in temperatures with a high of 86 or 30 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.52 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.